Hi guys, today I wanted to talk about the topic of dark witchcraft, which has been talked about again recently, and the Four Queens did a really good video on it, as well as my friend Tara from her channel Elliptica24, I think that's what her channel's called, but there's a lot of other really good videos too. I'm sure you can find them if you do a search, but I say it's being talked about again because back in, I want to say 2012, when Alison from Avalon Moon 91 and Sammy, when she was doing her Witch on the Rocks channel, were making a lot of videos on dark witchcraft and what they classed as what they were calling dark witchcraft. And that got people talking about, pardon me, what is dark witchcraft, and there were a lot of good videos made around that time as well. So I'll link to a few below, and one of my favourites was from Renee from Another Pagan blog, when she said that it's actually not dark witchcraft, it's just witchcraft, and I agree with that. And Mr. Shadow Boy made another good video as well, where he said that all witchcraft is actually pretty dark when you think about it. Even if you are working towards positive growth and healing and that kind of thing, you're still exerting your will and dominance upon the universe, and that can be seen as dark. And also historically, things like cursing and necromancy were not called dark witchcraft, they were just called witchcraft. And, you know, if you say to an evangelical Christian, for instance, I'm a white witch, I do light witchcraft, it's not going to mean anything to them because they believe that it's all evil and it all comes from Satan, so they don't really care. And another good video was by Charming Pixie Flora, where she just talked about what is dark witchcraft and talked about how there has to be a balance, which I absolutely agree with. So I'll link to those below. And I guess a lot of people use the terms light witchcraft and dark witchcraft as descriptors, and what most people would classify as dark witchcraft would be things like your necromancy, communing with the dead, communicating with the dead and working with the dead, working with so-called dark deities who are deities of death and destruction and endings and the night, and, you know, nocturnal deities and that kind of thing. But all deities have a light and dark side. You know, when you look at their mythology, you'll realise that, as well as if you've worked with them for any length of time, you'll realise that they all have their light and dark side. And also things like shadow work and soul retrieval could be termed as dark witchcraft as well. And things like light witchcraft would be your healing, anything for positive growth in areas of your life, such as prosperity and abundance, or, you know, love and friendship and relationships and that kind of thing, and all that good stuff that we want to attract into our lives, and just working on positivity and positive energy and just focusing on that side of things. So yeah, I can see how some people think that they're good general descriptors, but I personally find them a little bit too general, and I just don't find them helpful or relevant to me. And the reason for that is that I think if we're going to talk about our practices, it's more helpful if we're a little bit more specific. So if I say, oh, I'm a dark witch, I practice dark witchcraft, it's not going to mean anything to somebody whether they are a practitioner themselves or if they're a non-practitioner who doesn't really know very much about witchcraft. And it's going to be more helpful if you say something like, oh, I'm doing manifestation work to attract love into my life, or I'm doing shadow work, or I'm doing soul retrieval. Then people are going to have a better idea of what you're actually talking about. And so for that reason, I don't find them to be helpful or relevant, and I don't use the terms dark and light witchcraft personally. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the term fluffy bunny, because some people assume that if you're calling someone a fluffy bunny, you're saying that they're focusing on the love and light side exclusively, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. And the term fluffy bunny it seems to have fallen out of favour a little bit. It's sort of become a bit of a taboo thing to talk about, and that's a good thing, because I think it's quite a hypocritical term, or it can be, and it can be a little bit like high and mighty if you're standing there and calling someone a fluffy bunny, and it can be really dismissive of them and their practice and their personal path, which has really got nothing to do with you. And I used to be on the Non-Fluffy Pagans page on LiveJournal, the community on LiveJournal, and the penny dropped for me when I realised that everybody's got a different idea about what fluffy means. And yeah, some people would say that being all about love and light is fluffy, and I don't think that that's necessarily the case. And you know, I don't use the term fluffy anymore because I grew up, but if I had to say what I would term as fluffy, it would be someone who's willfully ignorant and who believes something that's not true just because it sounds good, and they're kind of la la la, I can't hear you kind of thing. And one example, and you don't see many examples of this anymore because I think people are a bit more clued on these days about the actual history of Wicca, but when you hear people saying, oh, Wicca's an ancient religion and it was practiced intact, you know, the stuff that was written about by Scott Cunningham was practiced intact millennia ago. And isn't that a really romantic idea? Wouldn't that be really lovely if the stuff that we actually practice today was practiced intact millennia ago? But it's just not true. There's no evidence for it. And, you know, we now know that Wicca was founded in the 1950s by Gerald Gardner, and before that we don't really know a lot about the practices of witchcraft. You know, we've got a few ideas from some of the pre-Christian pagan religions that, you know, we know little fragments about it, but we don't know a whole lot about it, so we can't go around saying Wicca is an ancient religion. We just can't. And if somebody does, then to me that's fluffy, and that's the kind of fluffy that you don't want to be. Whereas being focused on love and light, I don't think that necessarily harms anyone. You know, I think that the world needs that, and I think we all have a balance. You know, nobody, even if somebody calls themselves a dark witch, at some point they're going to be working with something that has to do with love and light and positivity, whether they're working on their spiritual growth or their personal growth, and you know, drawing something to them that's positive that they want in their lives. And everyone that, you know, I think most people that focus mostly on the love and light are at some stage going to have to do some shadow work where they're facing their shadow and integrating it. So I think we all have a balance, and for that reason I wouldn't call myself a light or dark witch, and I don't use those terms. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about magical ethics, and I don't want to get preachy here. This is just my opinion, so it's okay if you don't agree, but I think that our magical ethics should line up with our ethics in all areas of our lives, so our ethics to do with other things. And basically, if you wouldn't do something using non-magical means or physical means, then you probably shouldn't do it using magical means either. And in my opinion, and from my experience, the best way to curse someone is if you can convince them that they're cursed. So if you plant that seed of suggestion in their mind, either by coming out and telling them that you've cursed them, or sending them a doll that you've stuck pins in or whatever, if you can get it to play on their mind and convince them that you've cursed them, then they'll be cursed. But if they just laugh in your face and don't give it a second thought, you haven't succeeded. I don't care how much effort and how much work and blood, sweat and tears you've put into the actual working or the actual ritual. If they don't believe that they're cursed, then they're not, in my opinion. So, whereas if you believe that you're cursed, then every little thing that happens to you, because we all have good and bad things that happen to us every day of our lives, but if you see those bad things as being because of the curse, so whether you stub your toe and go, oh, is it the curse? You know, it'll play on their mind. And if it's okay to convince somebody that you've cursed them, is it okay to otherwise threaten, bully, harass or intimidate them? You know what I mean? So it's just something to think about. And I don't want to get preachy, but that's my opinion on magical ethics. And in my opinion, and I'm no expert, but I believe that cursing someone is not a psychologically healthy way to deal with things. That's just my opinion. So thank you for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I would love to see this topic being talked about more. So, okay, see you next time. Bye!